is it that you've learned how to thrive? And what is it that you need to do to survive? And understanding that our strengths are contributing to how we thrive and survive is one way to deepen our understanding. And surprisingly, the way we show up when we thrive is similar to what we need to survive.
You are listening to the Leadership Vision podcast, sharing our expertise in the discovery, practice, and implementation of a strengths-based approach to people, teams, and culture. For more resources about developing your strengths of your team, or the strengths of your entire organization, click the link in the show notes or visit us on the web at leadershipvisionconsulting.com. Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Freeberg, and today on the podcast, our CEO and founder, Brian Schubring, who has been working in the strengths movement since 1999, if you can believe that. Well, he talks to us about how to understand what our strengths need to thrive and what our strengths need to survive. And we have found that, once you reach a deeper level of awareness and understanding and articulation of your strengths, you will know exactly what they need in both of these situations. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Thriving, surviving, that seems like maybe contradictory or even opposite states of being, certainly opposite mindsets or moods or minimally words, but actually we have found those two things to be more similar than different. And so today on the podcast, Brian defines thriving as that sense of when, things in life are just really going great.
We feel like we're coming to life. Our relationships are healthy, and we seem to be living a life that is just who I am. We don't have any sense of discontent with what it is that we're trying to do. We understand where we are, the people that are around us, and we truly have that sense of enjoyment to the things that we're doing and the people that we are with.
And the idea of surviving is more like that sense that you're just hanging on when difficult situations arise. We may feel stuck or unaware about how to take that next step. And many of us may have felt like this at numerous times or points over the last couple of years.
To survive is not knowing what's next. To survive is to face something that we think is insurmountable, that we would say, I can't get through this. I've tried. I just don't know how to do it. And we also then fear that if we make the wrong move, something worse might happen. That's when we're faced with survive.
Thriving mode and surviving. Two key concepts to pay attention to here today on the podcast. In this episode, Brian is going to be sharing how strengths can point us to what we need to thrive, to keep the good times rolling, if you will, and also what we need to survive, to keep putting one foot in front of the other when we feel like our back's against the wall or that things are just not going well, and we need some way to get unstuck when those inevitable life challenges arise. Here's Brian.
So I want to ask us all from the very beginning, do you know? Do you know what you need to thrive? And do you know what you need to survive? And for the moment, let's just think about our strengths, using that language of strengths and the experience that we've had within our lives, that accumulated knowledge about our strengths, to begin from there to answer these questions. What do I do when I'm thriving? And what is it that I need to survive? My father-in-law, affectionately known as G-Pops, puts puzzles together. And just as a little side note here, his strengths are positivity, woo, adaptability, empathy, and developer. And may I also say, not to give it all away, that he's in his early 80s. So one of the first memories that I have of my father-in-law, G-Pops, is when I saw a puzzle spread out across the dining room table, and there he was putting the puzzle together. But now let me just take a moment here to add some depth to this. These are not just the kind of puzzles that you may be thinking of right now. These are the really complicated puzzles. Like, you've seen them. The puzzles of a snowstorm or a forest. That puzzle of sand or a stack of candy bars. You get the idea. What's important to note is how and when my father-in-law is putting puzzles together. He knows what he needs to thrive, and he knows what he needs to survive, and the differences between the two are almost indiscernible. In the midst of the fullness of his life, he puts puzzles together. In the midst of his suffering, he puts puzzles together. This consistency of practice, despite life's circumstance, is what I call wisdom. My father-in-law is a man of wisdom. The wise are those people who are the practical curators of the pieces. Wisdom has a source of place and experience, from which my father-in-law is always mining enduring truth. He's applying life lessons, and he's also looking for those specific next steps and how he can help other people. Wisdom also has a source of time and importance. He recognizes that a portion of what might be necessary needs to always be broken down, handed off to someone else, even spoon-fed so that they can apply this wisdom that he has learned. Wisdom also has a source of character and compassion. For my father-in-law and for people who are wise, this compassion, this source of character is enduring and focused on something or someone beyond themselves. Wisdom only happens when it becomes connected to a need. Again, I want to just remind you of this question. What is it that you do when you're thriving, and what is it that you need to do to survive? So first, when we thrive, we often lean into the deeper understanding of our strengths. The closer we get to understanding the condition of our thriving, the more we may become aware of how we can survive life's challenges. You cannot have one without the other. Have you ever considered how strengths can help you when you are not feeling strong? Have you also, with the same sense of curiosity and importance, considered how strengths can help you understand how you thrive and what you need to survive? Today, I want to discuss how strengths can point to the many ways we can thrive, and when life gets difficult, how strengths can help us survive extremely challenging situations. Now, much time is spent in understanding our strengths to increase our engagement, our personal happiness, deepen our relationships, have greater influence on other people, and job satisfaction. These are all indicators of what it means to survive. However, I just don't think that people spend much time thinking about how strengths can, let's say, come to the rescue. Additionally, this may present a new way of working with the principle of the basement of our strengths or the dark side of our strengths. Also, thinking of how strengths can come to the rescue can also help us better understand and apply strengths for healing and restoration. My perspective and my challenge with people is to view our strengths not only as potential or areas of focus to increase our engagement, but also to see strengths as a gateway to understanding what we need when things are going really wrong. Think about how strengths can help answer this question. What do you need to survive a really difficult relationship, or a really challenging situation, or when something completely unexpected shows up? How can our knowledge of strengths help us then determine how can we survive these unique situations? So now what do we do with this concept of thriving and surviving? Think about these two following prompts, and think about them in consideration of your top 5 strengths, and then identify an example. Prompt number 1 has to do with thrive. I had the ability to, and you can fill in the blank. For survive, I had the need to. For example, when I'm thriving, my strength of strategic is able to make quick decisions that are helpful for myself and helpful for others. However, when I am trying to survive one of those life's difficult challenges, my strength of strategic is paralyzed to make a decision. And what I really need to do is simply make a decision, like any decision. That decision could be as simple as which pair of shoes I'm going to wear today, which could be a positive example of how I can apply my strengths just to get the wheels rolling again. But when I'm thriving, my strength of intellection has the time to think through critically what it is that we're facing, or I have the opportunity to spend time writing and processing my ideas in a succinct way. However, when I'm trying to survive, my strength of intellection can quickly focus on things that are negative or challenging, which really clouds my ability to think clearly. What happens is I begin to think in a more confused state. So when I'm trying to survive, what happens to my strength of intellection? Well, it needs to begin to identify what some of the correct and healthy boundaries are to my thinking, so I can focus and narrow my thought process on that which is positive, which is going to perhaps lead to another decision, which is going to then engage my strength of strategic. Another example of someone who is to thrive is a person that I know with the strength of discipline. When she is in a situation where she's thriving, she's able to think of organizational structures that need to be tweaked or put in place so people can work more efficiently and be more engaged. And she also has a unique ability when she's thriving to begin to form structures and organization and processes for individuals to do more effective and engaging work. However, when she begins to struggle and has that moment of how am I going to survive, her discipline sometimes doesn't know which pieces to put into place or even how to begin to organize something. And so what she needs is help in understanding perhaps what 2 good first steps are to begin her process of organizing and putting structure in place. And then she's right back where she is generating life for others and for herself through the helpful application of her strength of discipline. So let's go back to my father-in-law, G-Pops. When he sees a pile of puzzle pieces, he gets excited and he dives in. Actually, he gets just as excited looking at the puzzle box cover. And this excitement about puzzles is dwarfed by his excitement about people. And he's got what it takes. He has the patient focus and the complexity to help people through the biggest challenges through putting positive small steps together so they can help move out of their complications. Here's the point. The more pieces to the puzzle, the greater the complexity. When faced with a circumstance where we need to be rescued, how can our strengths help inform us and others on what we need to do to put the pieces back together? No matter what degree of brokenness and amount of pieces that are in our life, there's always hope. Yes, the greater the complexity, the greater the challenge, but also the greater the challenge, the greater the reward. And this is why we need to pay attention to the pieces and ask ourselves, what do I need to survive through the pieces? So now what happens? Find a friend, a partner, or a family member. Ask them what you are like when you are thriving. Ask what happens, what you do when you're trying to survive, and how do we make it through. Their critical observations and perhaps some objective feedback that they may give may really help us what it is that we do instinctively that helps us survive, and yet we don't know it. They probably do not fear your pieces in the same way that you do. The greater the personal brokenness, the more pieces we may see and the more pieces we may find. If you have ever journeyed with someone through crisis, you know there is more pieces to the brokenness than you first realize. Let's not be afraid to ask for help when we are in pieces, and certainly not afraid when we see someone near in pieces. My father-in-law, like I said, he's not afraid to jump in, get his hands on the piece and start putting the picture together. He's an example of someone who is wise, applying life lessons to an immediate need. And my ask of you is, what do you know that you need to do to begin to address your needs? And how can you help others face and overcome their needs?
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Vision podcast, sharing our expertise in the discovery, practice, and implementation of a strengths-based approach to people, teams, and culture. For more resources about developing your strengths, the strengths of your team, or the strengths of your entire organization, click the link in the show notes or visit us on the web at leadershipvisionconsulting.com. And if you found value from this podcast episode or any of our other resources, we would really appreciate it if you would review us on iTunes. It helps, or just share it with someone that you think might benefit from this as well. And for more resources and training opportunities, please visit us on the web at leadershipvisionconsulting.com. I'm Nathan Freeberg, and on behalf of our entire team, thanks for listening.